Hello, welcome to the Tour of Pleasure here in the Enchanted Kingdom of Hermione. I'm your host, as always, Zip Gun. We're up here monitoring things at the studio, and I've just had a religious experience at the thrift store. I figured I would do a video about it before I do anything, just because I'm going to get busy. I'll be listening to a lot of music. And it was the kind of thrift store run. I went to have lunch with my daughter. We do this a lot, and sometimes we just hang out. And this is in the suburb of Victoria, BC, Langford. And often we go and hit all the thrift stores. And I think there's at least four thrift stores in the sort of general area that we have lunch. There's two Salvation Armies. There's a St. Vincent de Paul, and there's one I always forget about, a place called the ReStore. And it's basically a thrift store, but they do more things like building supplies and door frames and things, ovens and heavier stuff. But for my purposes, compact discs and the occasional record, they all are about the same thing. And so we went and had lunch, and she was like, let's go do this, okay. And I was commenting how it's such a crapshoot, you never know. And lately I haven't found very much stuff. Nothing to get excited about. And we went to our first Salvation Army, where somebody is clearly curating it. One slipped through, one! And I was quite happy to find this. John Fehee's Christmas album. These sold remarkably well, considering they're John Fehee. And they are really great records to have kicking around at Christmas. So I was delighted to find that. But that was basically it. And we were on our way to the other. There's a couple right next to each other up in the middle of Langford. And we were on our way there to try the other Salvation Army, because there's two of them pretty close to each other, and the St. Vincent de Paul. But just as we were about to sort of go there, I thought, let's try the ReStore, because the ReStore has CDs. They have lots of weird stuff. I found a great little guitar amp there once. We found household stuff there. And it's thrift store. In other words, it's often not really all that cheap, but sometimes it's one of those places. Knowledge is power. So we go there, and it's always different. Every time I go there, the CDs are here, the CDs are there. There's a box on the floor. The CDs are in three different places. So I got to kind of do a little reconnaissance, and I go in, and there's 2 rows of CDs. Maybe 200 CDs max. Okay, and when you hit these places, even once a month, certain CDs, my memory is good. Oh yeah, that's still here, that's still here. And so I started on this row without much enthusiasm, expecting nothing. And I got bored about halfway through, because it was all stuff I remember being there before. So I went to the end of the second row, and I found something pretty cool. I found, what was it now? I think it might have been this. Vivaldi Complete Cello Sonatas by David Watkin and, what do they call themselves again? The King's Consort. Sealed. Okay, this is a $30 CD. I was, yeah, okay. And I then found a bunch of other stuff. And essentially, in one area about this big, I found this complete motherload of amazing stuff. And you wait, I fear, well, I don't know what's happened here. I have the bad feeling somebody has died. And whoever they were, they would have been great to go out for a beer with, because their musical taste, and I'm sure this is all from the same place, their musical taste is really something else. And I've sort of divided it into separate sections here, but I'll because I want to dispense with the stuff people won't care about much. Now, I would buy this anyways, but it's a SACD, surround CD, etc. I would buy that in a heartbeat. And Weber's clarinet concertos are lovely things. Here's a CPO of a composer I've never heard of doing the Nature Symphony. So sure, for $2 I'll buy a CPO. There's an Charles Dutoit, despite the fact that he's a bad man. And go to my video about bad people who make great music. You can add him to it, apparently. I don't have this. That's him with the Montreal Symphony, the OSM. And they did really great recordings of just about everything they did. This one was borderline. These were $2, all of these. Holst choir music. Now, I don't have a lot of Holst. And I don't know if there's a lot of Holst out there. So I thought it's on Hyperion, a label I love. Also on Hyperion, I already mentioned this, Vivaldi. Okay. Also on Hyperion. Now, this one I can't wait. Now, old prog rockers will remember Bo Hansen and his Lord of the Rings album on Charisma in about, I don't know, 1973 maybe. And I might even still have a copy of it. Anyway, this is him doing choir music with an organ. And the liner notes, they don't even mention Lord of the Rings. And they sort of mention he's been into pop and jazz, but they really don't mention he was any kind of a rock musician. So I think that's kind of cute. Now, what else did I find? Now, I started finding, that was it for the classical. So the classical, I won't bore you with more classical. But things start getting weird. Okay. I found a Tangerine Dream record that I have never heard of on Purple Pyramid Records, which I've never heard of. And I thought, Tangerine Dream are sort of like Vangelis, but more so. If it's there and it's cheap, I'll buy it. Vangelis, if it's $1 or less, I'll buy it. These guys, if it's $2 or less, I'll buy it. There was also this, and I daren't hold it the wrong way because the box is broken. And it will just completely shatter, fall apart all by itself. The Zeitgeist concert. Now, this is just before Edgar Froese passed away. He was the last original member. And so, now these might not be really good, but then I can trade these in for cool stuff if I want. Now, okay, it gets weirder. Okay, and then there were these two things. Now, these are both on Esoteric, which is a great label that's reissuing just about everything from the 70s. It doesn't matter if it's any good or not, they're putting it out. Now, you remember Graham Edge, don't you? Or, for that matter, do you remember Ray Thomas? Now, these guys were, if you don't remember, and you probably won't unless you're fairly old, they were members of the Moody Blues, and at this point in time, these points in time, the Moody Blues were a hot commodity. They were just killing it. They were selling records, and they had their own boutique record label, one of my favorite things to talk about. And their boutique record label was called Threshold. And Threshold, what are these? I'm going to do a big, long video about boutique labels and pick out individual, like who did Threshold sign other than the Moody Blues. And they took a break, and they all did solo records. Now, what's his name? Justin Hayward and John Lodge. They did Blue Jays. That was a hit. Pinder, I think, did one or two. And then Edge was the drummer, and he hooked up with the Gervitz brothers. This is essentially the Baker Gervitz Army without Ginger Baker. And I guess I have not played this. I'm betting it's terrible. But again, I can probably trade it. Ray Thomas was their flautist. And he was, he managed to do 2 solo records for Threshold. And these are really hard for me to get into. However, one of these is a quadraphonic mix. Yeah, this was $4. Yeah, buy it. If I hate it, I can always sell it. Folks, it gets weirder. I'm sorry. Things are getting lysergic here. Next were a couple of CDs. One by Pearls Before Swine. You remember them? No. Nobody remembers them unless they're an ancient hippie. Tom Rapp. These guys, I don't know. This was on ESP Disc, which was the strange avant-garde jazz / folky acid pop. They had the Gods on let's see. Also available, Albert Eiler, Sun Ra, Pearls Before Swine, Holy Modal Rounders, and Sun Ra. So you get the drift. This record is such a throwback to the 60s. It's the pundits say it's their best record. I played it. I had a copy a million years ago. I don't remember anything about it. I'm gonna play it again and listen to it. Now, just in case you don't have enough weirdness with them, you get the Tom Rapp solo record. And not even one of the ones he did for Reprise. He did this one for Blue Thumb. And apparently it was done in Nashville with expert session people. And I gotta listen to this. I haven't heard it. I have no idea. Does not get me. Okay, Stranger Still. We have a CD by Allan Stville. Now, Allan Stville, everybody knows Allan Stville from his Renaissance of the Celtic Harp album, which sold gajillions of copies back in the day. This is a much less dated. This is what year is this? And this looked interesting. And this was another one. I kind of looked at it like the whole 2002. But I like Allan Stville. He's kind of an interesting thinker. And I thought, again, if I don't like this, I can probably trade it for something I do like. Another one. This was a real thing, but slap key Hawaiian guitar. Looks like it's sort of self-released from Hawaii. Not a lot of people playing on it, which is a good sign. Nobody playing synthesizer. That's a good sign. I'm going to give it a shot because I absolutely love Hawaiian slap key guitar. Then there were these. Now, we're getting into holy smoke. Now, these have been available for a while on Edsel. Godly and Cream, the condensed version of their first album with their second album on one CD, and then their third album and their fourth album on 2 CDs. Now, I have these on LP. I've enjoyed them since they came out. Godly and Cream are very much an acquired taste. In retrospect, some of their stuff is hopelessly arch. Apparently, they like to smoke a lot of pot. It's sort of evident here. Consequences is an amazing 3-record box set. It's one of the most ridiculous projects ever committed to vinyl by a record company, and the record company had no idea what they were getting into with it. And when it finally came out, they were just like, "What?" And yeah. Anyway, I'm pretty sure these were about $22 on Amazon. I think this is more like 30 because it's 2. They were $2 each. I just did cartwheels of joy to find these. Finally, I get my vinyl copies are originals, so they're a tad worn out. Okay, you ready for it to get weirder? It's gonna get weirder, folks. Believe me. We're getting to the sealed. A bunch of these were sealed. Okay. Not quite there yet. We're just about. Victoria native and hometown hero, Paul Horn. This was his sort of, not really Inside 2, because he did an album called Inside 2. But this is I think the follow-up to the Inside album, which sold, again, gazillions of copies. Fuck only knows why. It's solo flute in the Taj Mahal. I could make that record today in my turret with a Lexicon reverb, but back then it couldn't be done unless you actually went to the Taj Mahal and played your flute in it. God knows how he got permission. This was done by the label Cook in Germany, who, amongst other things, make the best vinyl records. Oh, baby, they're nice. However, this is a CD. It sounds amazing. Celestial Harmonies, I think, had something to do with this. Am I right? Yeah. Anyway, if I ever want to listen to Paul Horn play the flute in the Taj Mahal, there's my fantastic digital copy. Yeah, no, I've got it. Okay. Okay, it's weirder. You're getting weirder. Getting weirder. Yeah, I'll leave that down there. Okay, now these were sealed. Okay, the best of the ventures. Now, record nerds will say, oh, that terrible thing. That only has 12 songs on it or 10 songs on it. Wrong. That's the cover of that one, and they even acknowledge that on the back here. Like, please note, this cover was used on a different thing, or blah, blah. And so this got my attention. There's 20 songs on it, and they're all good ones. I don't think I have any of these on CD. Please note that the front cover image appeared on an earlier release by the artist with a different track list. Now, and it's got the EMI thing, which is kind of weird, because if I remember correctly, this was originally on the UA label. UA bought Liberty, etc., etc. So, then I noticed, oh wait, it's Australasia. It's an Australian version. Cool. I was glad to buy it. $2, I buy it. Here we go. Second movement. What is this doing here? Les McCann and Eddie Harris. These guys made a couple of records together and many solo singly of what I would call Atlantic funk jazz. These records are very popular. A lot of jazz purists turn their nose up at them, but they can go suck an egg. This is great funky music. You play this at a party, everybody will boogaloo to it all night long. And yeah, I think these are about $20 new. They're not too expensive. Maybe even cheaper, because they're on the collector's label, which is a great label. Even though it's a great but horrible label, the packaging is kind of It's not perfect. But they're cheap, and they put a lot of stuff out, which I bought, which I was really happy to find. Okay, now we're getting into Helium territory. I remember, how many years ago now? 30 years ago, maybe. Sitting in the record section of A&B Sound in Victoria, in their lovely, huge classical section, holding this CD in my hand and going, wow, I don't know this piece. Now, Harry Partch, I like Harry Partch. And this is sealed, by the way. Now, this was back then when I was wrestling with this purchase. I think this was $25 at least. Zadig, Zorn's label. And it consists of 17 songs which have an intoning voice, as it's called. And is it a viola? Adapted viola? Tenor violin, it says here. I think it was originally for his adapted viola. Anyways, I thought, So it's not like any of his ensemble pieces. It's going to be a little bit, I ultimately never bought it. Found it for $2. I can't wait to hear this, because I can get back on a jag with Harry, because this was also there and sealed for $2. I've nearly bought this a few times. It's rarely cheaper than $20 online when you can find it. I think it's out of print now. Again, the packaging could be slightly better, but it features the 2 albums of Delusion of the Fury in the original box set. That doesn't feature, I don't think, I haven't opened it, but I don't think it features the record that came with that, which was a demonstration record of all of his instruments. And that box set is to die for. And I think I've had several copies of it now. And I bought it when I was a kid, when I was like 14. So to have it in CD, nice and clean, no messes, I'm going to be really happy. Okay, more sealed stuff, and this gets just nuts. I mean, it's really... So there were sealed copies of, well, for starters, I was like, what the heck is this? Oh, it's the Walker Brothers. And this is apparently the very best of the Walker Brothers. Now, the Walker Brothers, what's this called again? After the Lights Go Out. On Fontana. That makes me happy that it's on Fontana. British issue of this. Again, some of these have been sealed since 1990. So 35 years. The air in here is 35 years old. As we sit, well, actually not as we sit, as we sat an hour ago, my knowledge of the Walker Brothers and Scott Walker was The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore, which I remember as a hit when I was a kid, and I thought it was the Righteous Brothers because it sure sounded like the Righteous Brothers. Okay, today, or at least here in this thrift store, I found this, which I thought for $2, I will buy that, sure. Okay, and then I found this. Sings Jacques Brel. Now, weirdly, I found 3 Jacques Brel CDs recently in another thrift store, and I've been sort of coming to grips with these. I then found, and you're not going to see much of this because this is a very arty 4AD cover. What the heck is this called again? It's got a really stupid long name, and it's the soundtrack to a ballet. And this. Now this is his maybe second to last album, Scott Walker. This is from the 60s, I believe, or late 60s. The Walker Brothers are from the mid 60s, and this is only to have been released once. 25-minute EP on 4AD called what the heck is it called again? Jesus. And who shall go to the ball and what shall go to the ball? It's called. Now, again, my knowledge of this man was limited to The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore until about a half an hour ago, or just before I did all this. I thought I got popped. This is interesting. I'm gonna put this in. Well, it's interesting. And then I popped this in, and it's it's original. It's interesting. Not really sure what to make of it. The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore. I always thought sounded like the Righteous Brothers. On this album, he sounds kind of like Brian Ferry trying to be, I don't know, Luciano Berio? I don't know. Anyway, so those were all at one thrift store. I think there was 27 of them. You know, when you go to the last thrift store, it's going to be... So we went to the other Salvation Army. Nothing. And we went across the street to the St. Vincent de Paul, which is a good, solid thrift store for me. They're $1 a CD. They've always got something. And this time they had a couple of interesting things. Well, 2 CDs by a guy I've heard of, Kale. And this is kind of Indian subcontinent electronic music. He's a tablaist by trade. I took like a 3-second jump through this, and it seems okay. It seems sort of like my Arabic EMI dance samplers, which I like. They're ambient. There's nothing, doesn't draw attention to itself. And then, and it's funny, I actually had one of these, but I don't care. I found 3 CDs on Verve by the late great Randy Weston, and these are interesting CDs because he had a great interest in African music, and he played with a lot of African musicians. And this one especially is, I haven't played any of these. I have no idea what these sound like yet, but they all come very highly recommended. And he made a lot of records, this guy. He lived in Morocco in the 70s. Yeah, like this has the Gawa musicians of Marrakesh, the Gawa musicians of Tangier, and then a quintet. Alex Blake on bass. Billy Higgins is on drums on this one, and Billy Harper on tenor. Like not, I wouldn't call them huge names. Victor Lewis plays drums on this one. Chief Bay on vocals and drums. Pharoah Sanders is on this one, that's right. So, again, these were $1. I was like, yep, I'm in, okay. But I was surprised because I thought for sure after this mother load I'd be dead. There'd be nothing there because that's how it is. It's like fishing. So, yeah, there you have it. I'm going to keep it short because I'm going to do a follow-up on the Scott Walker. Because I'm going to listen to these 4 and kind of see if I can make up my mind on the man. I don't know if he's good or not. It's hard to tell. But he's certainly interesting. You can't whistle it, I'll tell you that. None of what I've heard before now. But I'll bet the Walker Brothers is a whole lot different. So, anyway, thanks for watching. I figured I'd do this now just because now I want to open all of these and let out the 40-year-old air into my turret and see if it does anything. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button and look after each other and uh, keep on keeping on. A lot of people are having trouble doing that, so I guess it bears mentioning. And we'll talk at you later. Thanks for watching.